Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Engelbrecht. I am the Membership and Events Committee Chair, and welcome to this evening's Norfolk and Norwich Naturalist Society AGM. There'll not be a facility for our different attendees to speak at the AGM. We have popped you all on mute for the time being, just to allow us with bandwidth to go on, but there will be time obviously to speak when we have our talk afterwards, and any questions that you've sent in via email or through the post will be answered throughout the AGM. I'd like you all to turn off your videos once the talk starts. You can do that by hovering over the bottom left and clicking on stop video. This is just to allow us with bandwidth, as we've got over 51 attendees today. So it's just to stop us from having any breakages. I'm now going to hand over to Carl Chapman, Chairman of the Norfolk and Norwich Naturalist Society. So without further ado.
Thank you, Danielle, and good evening, everyone. Before we start, I'd like to mention two things. Firstly, at last year's AGM, a lady kindly donated a book to the Society's library. Unfortunately, I didn't make a note of the lady's name. The book belonged to her grandfather, Mr. H. Pashley, a taxidermist who lived at Cley at the beginning of the last century. I'd kindly ask that lady please get in touch with me. My contact details are easily found within the latest edition of Natterjack. Secondly, I am indebted to Danielle, to James Froud and to James Emerson for putting together the rather complicated process for tonight's AGM. The process has been long and less than simple. It is being operated within the terms of the special legal framework which has been put in place by the government for the AGMs of charities during the pandemic and has been agreed and sanctioned by the Charities Commission. Good. We'll now commence the meeting proper. So first of all, apologies for absence from Debbie Ashton, John Butcher and Tony Irwin, who can't be with us tonight, which is unfortunate. Moving on to minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of March 2020. I've signed a copy of those minutes and already handed them over to our secretary. So that should deal with that matter. And matters arising from those minutes, none have been raised by the membership. So we can move on to the presentation of the chairman's report. Now, I don't intend to read in total the report published in the latest version of Natterjack. However, I would like to highlight a few individuals. After all, that's what the society is. It's a collection of individuals. So the society could not function without the goodwill and dedication of a number of people. Again, I don't intend to list them all now, and they are listed in the Natterjack report. However, it would be remiss of me if I didn't highlight a few. Firstly, Tony Leach, for his work as chair of the Publications Committee, producing a superb range of publications during the course of the year. Education continues to be one of our main aims, and transactions, the bird and mammal report, as well as occasional publications, continue to be one of the main ways we carry this out. Well done for this year, Tony. Tony Irwin and more latterly Mark Collins have pulled together much information as head of research committee. I know Mark has thrown himself wholeheartedly into the latest venture at Houchin. I look forward to seeing the results in due course. So power to your elbow, Mark. Stephen Martin and recently Danielle have put together a number of events and talks, many of which have had to be forgone. However, the use of Zoom has enabled us to proceed with all our talks. I do hope you are making use of these and participating from the comfort of your sitting rooms, like some of you I can see now. Remember, if you missed any, you will be able to visit our website and view recordings at your own leisure later. I stated in Natterjack that I could not have operated as chairman without James Emerson as secretary. I meant it. He is accurate, punctual, knowledgeable, and without doubt the best minute taker I've ever come across. Whatever he turns his hand to, he's good at. So thank you, James. Heartfelt thank you. Our treasurer is another stalwart. Jim Fround has mastered his new position and once again ensured the finance committee functions efficiently and effectively, and at the same time supporting the membership and events team while juggling the constant amendments to the website. Jim is a linchpin of the society. There are many others too, so many to mention, but my thanks go to them all. I should be moving aside as chairman of the society. I've really enjoyed the last 4 years. We're now in a position financially unmatched within the 151 years the society has been in existence. We have more members than at any time previously. We now have the best team in place possible to produce the best research, to publish that research, and to put that research in front of the people that matter within the county to protect its wildlife. That's what we're all about. We continue to move forward as educators, involving more and more people with Norfolk's wildlife, and long may that continue. So I'll now hand over to that linchpin that I mentioned, Jim Froud, our treasurer, to give a snapshot of our financial position. Jim.
Thank you, Carl, and good evening, everyone. I expect you've seen the Chairman's annual report and my statements of account for 2020. They were sent to members in the recent Natterjack edition. So my Treasurer's report will be brief this evening. First, I'd like to thank Carl and Tanya Chapman and James Emerson, who were my Finance Committee and helped ensure the integrity of the accounts and our procedures. Secondly, I'd like to show some graphs of the membership trends as mentioned in the annual reports. It'll help make them a bit clearer. So the first one is share this. Here we go. This is our membership over the last 5 years and the beginning of this year, and you can see that it's gone from roughly 530 odd up to 670 odd. So it's certainly gone up about 100. And maybe you can see that it's a smooth graph there. On the other side, we've got the changes in membership, and you can see that the number joining is in blue, and the number joining is of late much higher than the number leaving. And in fact, this year, you might be able to see, I just minimize this thing over here. You might just be able to see that we've had so far this year as nearly as many joining as we had in 2015, which is remarkable, really. The other thing I'd like to do is to show some subscriptions and sales graphs, because although people don't tend to like graphs, these are pies, and so they're much more palatable. We've got here a publications section of our expenses, which is by far the most of it. It's probably 80% of the expenses. It's quite a lot. And that was for 2020. It's not that every year. 2020 was a special year. It followed on from 2019, our centenary, or centenary and a half. And you can see that our subscriptions by no means cover that, but we've had plenty of donations which make up for it. I don't think I need to say much more about this. You might see that we spent much more than we had coming in last year. That's because we had the centenary the previous year and the expenses were carried over. I'll stop sharing graphs now and start to talk to you properly. We have to thank Tony Leach, as Carl has already done. One of the reasons is that great big chunk of publications in bright yellow, that's an expense, but it represents all the hard work he does in editing, subscribing to publications himself, getting them printed and delivered to members and shops, And he also sends new members of Welcome Pack, and all those new members that we've been getting require him to do some work. Last year we had some legacies. We've got some legacies coming this year as well, I expect. We got some scheduled for this year, that's for certain. And the legacies we had totaled over 14,000 last year. And they helped fund our new publications. And I suppose the new publications helped increase the membership as well. At the end of 2020, our bank balances were up 5% on the previous year, and they totaled over £107,000. And we anticipate increased sales and membership. So we're well set for later in 2021. The annual report is with the examiners, and the examiners will in due course approve it, and then it'll be published on our website. You'll be able to see it there. And I think that's probably all I have to say, except that if you have any questions and they're technical or otherwise, you can email me at membership@nnns.org.uk. My contact details are on the website then. And I'll now hand you back to our chairman, Carl.
Thank you, Jim. I'd now like to present to you our nomination of Nick Aitchison as president of the Society for the next 12 months. Many of you will know Nick already, as he is an ambassador for the NWT. Nick lives in North Norfolk. For 10 years he lived in South America, working with conservation NGOs such as the WWF and Wetlands International. He's also spent 3 years in Asia and has worked with wildlife on every continent. Conservationist by passion and commitment, and since his return to the UK has worked for the Norfolk Wildlife Trust, the Wildlife Trust in general, and the Hawk and Owl Trust. Having crossed the globe in search of wildlife as a guide, he is equally at home spotlighting in a Bornean rainforest, watching walruses from zodiacs in the Arctic, or shedding tears over the song of Madagascar's Indris, or even snug in the Norfolk Flint cottage he shares with a rescued flock of chickens. I am very pleased Nick will be our new president. I'm now going to hand over to James Emerson, our secretary, to run through the election and voting parts of the AGM. Over to you, James.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Hello, everyone. I'd like to take you through the next part of the agenda, which deals with all the voting. So firstly, to say thank you very much to everyone that did vote, either by email or by post. Those have all been received, the votes totted up, and that's what I'll be going through shortly. So I can also confirm that as we had more than 34 responses, we're quorate, so that the decisions that we make today can actually be acted on, which is very important. At a normal AGM, each motion would have a proposer and a seconder, which would be drawn from the room. Just to make things simple, you can take it that all of these motions have been proposed by myself and then seconded by Carl Chapman. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen now. Okay, so most of the standard motions we've got just require a simple majority, so 51% or more to be carried. The changes to laws are slightly different. They require a 2/3 majority. So I'll just highlight which are changes to the laws when we get to those. So we'll start off with motion number 1, and that's election of council officers for the coming year. And everyone voted for that, so that was passed unanimously. So thank you for everyone for that. And then following on, as well as the officers, who are the chairs, the secretary, the treasurer, that sort of thing, we also have up to an additional 12 council members, and we ask you to vote to elect 2 more council members who will serve a 3-year term, and that was passed with 1 abstention. So thank you. Now, If you saw on the agenda the names of everyone who was standing for various positions, you'll have probably noticed that there was a vacancy for chairman and also a vacancy for the research secretary. At the time when we had to send out all the paperwork, nobody had come forward for either of those positions. Fortunately, since then, rather than leave a gap or have a sort of a rotating chairmanship, Tony Leach has very kindly come forward and agreed to stand as chairman for this year. And likewise, Janet Higgins has agreed to stand for research secretary. If we had live voting on the night today, then we could sort of formally vote them in. But because we voted in advance, that wasn't possible. So what will happen is they will be able to take on those roles, but they will be co-opted into them by council at our next council meeting. So the day-to-day work will be exactly the same, but for this year, they will be technically co-opted rather than voted in. Moving on. So the third motion was the election of Tony Owen as a vice president of the society. I'm pleased to say that passed unanimously. Okay, so the next 4 slides deal with law changes. So these are the ones that require 2/3 of those voting to vote in favour to allow for the motion to be passed. And this one, it was basically a technical issue in that you're probably aware that the society only offers one form of membership, an membership. It covers everybody in the household. A while back, we used to offer separate classes of membership, including a junior membership category, and that was still listed in our laws. So in order to match up the laws to what is actually being offered, we wanted to delete that category from the laws, and sufficient votes were cast to allow that to happen. What I should say is that there were several questions about this, and Carl will deal with those at the AGM. Okay, the second law change was a redefinition of family membership. The issue here was basically that the law was a bit vague. It said that family membership applied to immediate family, but it didn't define what immediate family were, who would be included in that. And we've always felt that really it should be people living at the same address. So it was slightly reworded, and again, sufficient votes were cast to enable us to pass that. Law change number 3, clarification of the benefits of membership. Again, a technical thing relating to the family membership. And the main gist of this was just to make sure that people were clear that basically, if you have 1 membership per household, then you get 1 vote. So not if you have a household of 6, you don't suddenly get 6 votes because you're only paying for 1 membership. Again, sufficient votes were cast to pass. And finally, for the law changes, we asked for a reduction in the quorum. As Jim has already explained, we've been very fortunate in that our membership numbers are going up, and they've consistently gone up over the last few years. That's not necessarily the case for our indoor events, and particularly in the current circumstances, it would be understandable if fewer people attended those events in the future. So we wanted to reduce the quorum to avoid getting stuck in a cycle of not being quorum at meetings and never being able to change it by not being able to change the quorum. That was passed unanimously, so thank you again. Okay, and finally, this is back to being a standard vote as opposed to a law change. We asked you to approve the appointment of Martin Benson as the Society's independent examiner. And again, we had sufficient votes to pass that. So all in all 8 of our motions passed. Thank you very much again to everyone who voted and for supporting the Society in what we're trying to do. And with that, I'd like to pass you back to Carl Chapman to continue with the rest of the agenda. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, James. Much obliged to you. Just to continue with the agenda, any other business? There was no areas that have been raised by the membership, but we did ask for any questions to be raised on voting slips. There weren't many. However, one repeated concern was that, as mentioned by James there, was that of our motions appeared to be deleting junior membership of the Society. Just like to reassure members, as James did, that this is not the case. The Society has not issued a junior membership scheme for a number of years, about 20 in fact. The deletion of the rule was just a piece of housekeeping making sure our rules reflect what we're offering currently in reality. The Society already offers benefits to the whole household of our members, including their children, and engages with children in events such as the last Norwich Science Festival. So we do get involved with children, young adults. Anyone who attended that event in Norwich knows how popular the Society stand was. I don't think any of us will ever forget the antics of Tony Irwin and his stuffed squirrel, but less said about that, the better. However, the Society has to formally acknowledge tomorrow's citizen scientists and David Attenborough's are the children of today. After all, one of our main aims is education. I think the Society has much to gain from a young person's membership for young naturalists under the age of 18. I feel we need to fill that void. I've had a discussion with Danielle, who, as you know, chairs the Membership and Events Committee, and she will be raising this at our next council meeting. Saying what we want to put these things in place is just not enough. We have to back that up with the will to carry ideas through. We need people to help, and we're always looking for new people to be part of the Society's council. If you're interested in taking the Society to another level, then step up. Danielle would love to hear from you. I'm now going to close the meeting and say goodbye to you all. We will take a short comfort break, returning in a few minutes when Danielle will introduce the illustrated talk by Dominic Buskell and Rod Pilcher entitled Wild Ken Hill, a Norfolk Ecological Restoration Project. Looking forward to that. So please stay connected, and Danielle will be back with you shortly. So thanks again and goodbye.